Have you just crossed the first big hurdle of selling your home by accepting an offer? Congratulations, but hold the celebration for just a moment because the real journey begins now. From dotting the I's on your contract to handing over the keys, each step is crucial to smoothly transitioning from seller to successfully sold. Dive into the world of BC real estate with us as we unveil the essential steps every seller must take after their offer is accepted. Whether you're dealing with inspections, navigating closing day, or simply making sure your ducks are in a row, this guide will ensure you're prepared for what's next. Let's turn that offer into a closed deal. Hi, I'm Robert Nixon, your Campbell River real estate specialist. Contact me for all your real estate needs and for up-to-date market information about Campbell River. You can reach me by subscribing to my channel, giving me a call, booking an appointment, or sending me an email. I'm here to assist you with any questions or guidance you may require regarding the Campbell River real estate market. Number 1, review and finalize the contract with your realtor. Review the contract of purchase and sale to ensure all terms are correct and finalize it. This is something that's very important for sure. Make sure, especially nowadays with electronic signatures, I always try to text people, say I've sent it to you for signing, please make sure you review and read it. I think it could be a little more clear and there's some discrepancies with the programs we use. The first thing is as soon as you click your signature, it jumps to the next signature. And if you're gonna do it that way, you have to actually go back up and read it, which I find very dysfunctional. So it's something I try to warn people about and say, make sure you read it. You're almost better off just reading through it all, then going back and signing it once you make sure everything's correct and maybe making notes if there's something that's not correct, or maybe we haven't countered properly or whatever it is, like we're countering a contract and didn't cross out that the armoire in the bedroom isn't included even though they tried to include it. So yeah, it's very important, but it would be nice if the built-in terms of the contract were more clear, so when buyers or sellers are going through, all they're really reading is the parts we can actually change. And if it's a built-in part of the contract, it can always be crossed out. It's really not common and not recommended, but you would see that because it would be crossed out, and changed. But like it'd be nice if the only stuff we could change was really obvious, so that when people go through, they can just go, okay, price, okay, deposit, okay, included items, which it is sort of obvious, but you don't really need to read it all. Well, you should read it all for sure. You want to understand the way the contract reads, but a lot of it can't really be changed. So yeah, you should always read it all, of course. I never recommend you didn't, but if you're going back and forth a bunch and you've already read it, you want to make sure those clear spots are obvious. So we try to make them obvious, so make sure you read it. Don't just sign it and trust your realtor. We all make mistakes, just like your doctor or your mechanic or anyone. We may have misheard you. We may have made a typo. Our program may have screwed up where it didn't cross something out where it's supposed to, and that hasn't been happening much lately, fingers crossed, but I think they're working through some of the issues we've had, but a lot of this stuff isn't perfect, unfortunately, and we still need to make sure we read everything before we sign it and make sure it's clear. Number 2, comply with subject clauses. Work on removing any subject clauses included in the offer, such as home inspection or financing, with the help of your realtor. So we're talking about getting an offer accepted. So this would be the buyers that would do that. Sometimes you would have a clause as a seller. The most common one and the one that makes the most sense to me for the functionality and the ability to move forward on purchasing a home is to sell your home first, so that you're in a position, unless you can afford to buy a home before you sell, you always want to sell it first, so you're in a position where you don't have a time clause and someone else can't bump you from your dream home or whatever home you're purchasing. I've seen it too many times where someone's like, oh, that's the perfect home, and then they try to write an offer, and sometimes an agent will even reject the offer. I know I would advise my clients to reject an offer if someone's writing an offer on my listing, where they didn't even have their home listed yet. So like, is it even ready? You can't even see it. I can't even see what it looks like. You can't go check it out and be like, oh yeah, it's a nice home. It's well priced. It could be $100,000 overpriced by the time they list it. We don't know that. So you always want to get your home sold first, and you can put clauses in there that protect you. So a simple one is subject to the seller entering into unconditional contract to purchase another property. So that gives you control. So if you need the time to look for a property, you can buy a month's time. And if you don't find the property you want, you can ask for an extension. The buyers don't have to accept that extension, but at least you're in a position where you're not stuck on the street, which unfortunately I feel like real estate has went that way, and people expect that. Oh, last time I sold, I was desperate to find a house so quick, I settled for this, which in a sense, sometimes if we're not, bazillionaires, we maybe have to settle a little bit, or you're not going to find the perfect home, but you also want to be in control. You're not homeless. Maybe not such a big deal right now in a slower market, but when it's busy, you definitely don't want to end up homeless. But I still think it's important you always list first, because a subject to sale and a time clause is just not a functional way to do it, right? It's like you have no like real skin in the game. You can just be bumped by someone else that has a pre-approval on a mortgage within 24 hours to 72 hours notice, and you just lose that home, and then you're back into square one anyways. So I think listening to a realtor and following their guidance is important, but working with a realtor that can help you understand the proper way to do it to protect you and still move forward in the process and negotiate properly is also very important. And there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat, and someone else may have a different opinion on that, but I think, and I've been trained, that that's the best way for sure. Number 3 is deposit confirmation. So ensure the buyer's deposit is received and held according to the terms of the agreement, usually in a trust account. So almost always, like 99% of the time, it goes into the buyer's agent's trust account. The biggest question I have, and we have to answer things with like buyer beware, or we can't lie. Obviously, we have to tell you the truth, but try to make you understand. So people are like, can I lose that deposit? I can never tell people, no, you won't lose the deposit, because I've seen deposits lost. And I always tell people, unless you like remove all your subjects and you don't show up to sign as a lawyer to buy the house, you're probably not going to lose your deposit, right? You're going to have a subject to finance. You can't get financing. The seller always needs to sign, and the buyer needs to sign to release that deposit. But if you can't get financing, as a seller, like, they're going to be so pissed off at you that they're not going to release that deposit. Not likely. Now, if you don't show up on completion date months later to sign the papers and complete on the contract, yeah, they're probably going to be pissed off and want that deposit. And the times where I've dealt with it, the person just released the deposit because it was out of their control, and they felt, here's my deposit. I'm sorry, it wasn't my fault. My sale didn't complete, and maybe there's a lawsuit pending down the road because of it. Or in circumstances where maybe upon subject removal, the deposit's released directly to the seller and it's non-refundable. And it isn't complete, which then the seller obviously already had the deposit in their hand. It was non-refundable. The buyer was made fully aware of that. But in most cases, the deposit is released back to you if you're doing everything lawfully and not the seller doesn't feel that they've been dishonored or whatever. But yeah, you want to always confirm that that's in the trust account. I mean, as a seller, I'd say it's not quite as important, but if your agent's not confirming that, it's obviously important. And the buyer's agents are usually pretty good in sending you that proof, right? Because if you don't receive the deposit, that contract is now null and void, and the seller can technically accept another offer. So as a buyer's agent, you want to make sure they're aware of that and know that the contract is firm, right? So yeah, deposits are always important, and the larger deposit, the better, right? Shows you have skin in the game. It's actually deposited into an account. It shows that money's actually real in there. It's not just money that they're pulling from the sale of their home or going to scrounge up from somewhere. Sometimes banks require it to be in the account for a certain amount of time. So if they don't actually have the money in their account already, then that could be a problem, right? Number 4 is prepare required documents. So gather all necessary documents for the sale, including title documents, with your assistance from your realtor. So again, something that you shouldn't need to worry about, but I mean, if your realtor's not doing that stuff, that's probably a big red flag. You may not know until it's too late, but I always pull title. When do I pull title? If I'm going to a listing appointment and it's like a past client and I know I'm going to list the property, I always have title pulled way ahead of time. If I've never met the person, sometimes I won't pull it right away until I've met them and unsure, and we'll sign a contract. Most people are going to be super lawful and tell you if there's someone else on title, but you may run into a situation where someone thinks they can sell it under the nose of the ex-wife or husband, so you need to pull title. If there's another name on title, you don't have a valid listing contract, right? But there's also other things that people may not know about. Maybe a CPL or a builder's lien or something got registered on title last minute, so you want to see that title and know what's going on if there's something on there that someone needs to either remove before they list the property, or at least acknowledge on how it's going to be removed. Maybe it's child maintenance, maybe it's collections from something, and they say, yeah, like I've already arranged with them, I'm going to pay it off as soon as it sells. And then like usually on our back end, we put the title documents as a listing agent so the buyers can see. If I had something on there like a CPL from a divorce or something, I probably wouldn't put it for the public, for the agents to see and show their clients, because that could show that there's a bit of a disagreement there if there has to be a CPL on title, and especially if both names are already on it. Why do you need a CPL? You have to sign for it to sell anyways, right? But lawyers may become involved and always want to register a CPL, but I wouldn't show that publicly until someone's going to write an offer and then we're required to provide that information. So I wouldn't let it be known for everyone to see until they're ready to write an offer, and then I'd send it to them. But yeah, that's again sort of maybe your realtor should give you that choice in that and how it's dealt with. Number 5 is communicate with your lawyer. Inform your lawyer about the accepted offer and provide them all the relevant documents for the sale process. So again, definitely, as soon as, you can have a lawyer ahead of time and know who you're using, and even have them aware that you're listing your house so they have a heads up, especially as the market gets crazy. If you have a quick closing, 10 days, 2 weeks is pretty tight in a busy market. Sometimes you get 3 to 5 day closings where it's like crazy, and maybe you gotta call around for a lawyer notary that can do it. But if they know ahead of time that it's happening and they maybe have all your information already on file because they worked with you, that's great. But definitely once you get an accepted offer, hey, will you be my lawyer for this transaction? Do you have the time? This is when the closing date is, and make sure that they're available. If you need recommendations because you don't have a lawyer or notary already, you can ask your agent. I always recommend a lawyer because notaries are great, but lawyer I think is, if there is a legal issue with the contract or a legal issue with something, there's more coverage there I think on your end if you have something to deal with. As far as the documents, you don't need to worry about that. Sometimes people start to bug us, and our conveyance department, depending on how busy they are, they go through stuff in order, right? So if something's closing quick, we'll always give them a note and say, hey, this is closing quick, can you please make sure you get it off as soon as possible? But if you're months away or a month away and they haven't got to it yet, it's probably not a big deal. Sometimes the lawyers start bugging us, but they're going to do it, and they're going to do it in order of importance. So we will get everything sent there. It's good to stay on it, but just know that it will be done. And make sure you book your appointment and stuff with your lawyer, notary, and make sure you know your balance sheet and all your amounts of money to bring in and stuff like that. And they'll get all the stuff from us, of course, and then the bank, and they'll figure out your insurance. Well, you'll have to have your insurance in place, but they'll get the proof of insurance from your insurance broker. I think it's called a binder, and they'll ask you for that information. Number 6 is home inspection coordination. So if applicable, in most cases, people are going to do home inspections. I'd always recommend it for my buyers, but sometimes they're not done. Sometimes people don't believe in home inspectors. Sometimes it's a hot market and they waive them. So for any buyer agreed upon property inspections, it's not something you want to deny your buyer. And I mean, even as a seller, you could do a pre-inspection and go, here's the inspection. There was these issues and we fixed them, or maybe you don't even show the inspection and you know that you fix those issues and you go, we don't even want them to know they're fixed. There's no material defect. There's nothing I need to disclose. You know that they're not going to find anything when they go through do their own inspection, or you do another inspection and show it without those issues, or you don't have any issues or they're quite minor and you show them that and go, okay, here. And they can either make the decision to use your inspection or go get their own. But inspections are definitely important. I think that's something that is overlooked. I mean, in my opinion, with building and the issues you can have, I mean, you should have multiple inspections. You should have your perimeter drain inspections. You should have oil tank scans, which no one ever does around here, but in some places they do where they have more common oil tank issues. Definitely a home inspection, but why not have your electrician? Why not have your plumber? Why not everyone go through? Probably not acceptable in today's world to do that with the tight timelines and stuff, but definitely perimeter drain inspections and a full home inspection. And if there is any concerns that you already know about before the home inspection, get a professional in that field. If you have questions about the retaining wall in the backyard, get an engineer or a concrete contractor ahead of time, because you want to get that looked at, and the inspector is going to bring it up. And then if some things come up on inspection, like an electrical issue, then you get your electrician in to look at it, which is why it's good not to book your inspection right close to subject removal, which people tend to want to do because they're like, oh, I don't want to do an inspection if I'm not going to get financing. But if an issue comes up on the day of and there's other people out there waiting on that property and you have issues, they put you in a position where you have to remove subjects and not know the potential damages from an issue that the inspectors reported, because they basically, I wouldn't say they wipe their hands of it, but they're not professionals in that field. They can't give you a quote. They can't give you advice. They can just say, we see a potential issue here. We recommend repair or replacement contract to qualified contractor, so they can point out the issue and give advice that it may need further investigation, but they can't give hard advice on cost or recommendations on how to repair it, really. So yeah, it's important you don't wait till the last minute for a home inspection. Number 7, address buyer inquiries. With your realtor's help, respond to any further inquiries or requests from the buyer, such as additional visits, information about the property. So I think, someone else wants to come through the house. I always put a clause in my buyer's contracts that says it'll allow access for appraisers and inspectors for measurements and stuff. Some realtors get weird about it and cross it out, but reality is, if the buyer wants to come through your house again, I mean, you should let them, unless you have something to hide. I think there's no reason not to. I mean, maybe like 2 days, 3 days, 5 days before possession, and you're like packing and trying to get out of it. It's like, look, man, I'm busy. We're trying to move out. You had a lot of time. Maybe you're ready to come through again. We're not allowing it. That might be acceptable, but if the offer is just accepted, or they're just removed subjects and just want to go through a measure for furniture, or just see the house again, or show family, maybe sort of acceptable. I think you should accommodate, right? But yeah, definitely something that will happen. And information, I mean, it can get a little bit tiring if they're asking a million questions about a million things, but the goal is just to answer as honestly and as well as you can. You may not know all answers. You may have to refer them to consult a professional, but answer what you can. And, again, I wouldn't give any advice or anything that you're unsure of in answer to those questions. Number 8, finalize the sale details. So work with your realtor and lawyer to finalize closing details, including the adjustment of the property taxes and utility bills. So again, that's something that lawyers going to mostly do. And they'll do your statement of adjustments, which is basically between the buyer and the seller on how money flows. So property taxes were paid in July, but you moved out in November, or property tax are paid in July from January to December, but you moved out. Let's say you moved out in August. So you paid property tax from August to the end of December. That money will be transferred from the buyer back to you on the statement of adjustments to cover that, because those property taxes are going to be while they're living there. Property taxes, I think, are the main one on the statement of adjustments. Obviously, you have other stuff like property transfer tax and closing costs and stuff like that. But the one that commonly goes between buyer and seller and makes adjustments is property taxes. Utility bills, there may be some if it's like a strata and it's like billed through the strata for heat or something. But again, not as common. But yeah, your lawyer will deal with all that stuff. They'll basically adjust all your numbers based on your down payment if you're buyer. If you're seller, just basically your closing costs that you either owe to the buyer or vice versa if taxes haven't been paid, and your legal fees and stuff. Then they'll tell you how much money you need to bring in for closing. For a buyer, for a seller, hopefully you don't need to bring any money for closing. It's just going to adjust off your sale price. Number 9, prepare for moving out. So begin preparations for moving out, including cleaning the property and arranging for movers as necessary. I always put in my buyer's contracts, the home to be professionally cleaned to a professional standard. You can put professionally cleaned, but most people are going to cross it out because they're like, we're not going to professionally clean it. We'll do it to professional standard. But I mean, as a seller, I always say, like, leave your home the way you'd want to move into a home. If you wouldn't want holes from your TV mount that hopefully excluded in the thing, or your pictures taken off the wall in the home you're going to move into, fill them and touch them up with paint. And same thing with cleaning. But I also say, from a buyer's perspective, if you go in and those windowsills haven't been cleaned in 10 years and you say professional cleaning or professional standard, I mean, it's likely those windowsills aren't getting cleaned. Unless you do a holdback and you specify, like, I want every inch of this house cleaned, which I think is getting a little too nitpicky. If you're worried about those things, that's either you're going to buy a higher caliber home that's maybe more clean and more tidy and doesn't need renovations, or you're going to be willing to take on those renovations or those cleaning duties that need in the home that someone's lived in for 10 or 20 years or 5 years and hasn't done themselves. They're not likely to do when they move out. Number 10 is closing. Attend the closing appointment with your lawyer and realtor to sign the final documents, transfer the keys, and receive the sale proceeds. Navigating through the steps after receiving an accepted offer on the home in British Columbia is akin to orchestrating a complex ballet where every move, every step is choreographed with precision. From the initial review and finalization of the contract to ensuring every term mirrors your intentions to the meticulous work on subject clauses, safeguarding your interests. The journey continues with the confirmation of the buyer's deposit, safeguarded in trust, and the meticulous gathering of necessary documents with your realtor's guidance lighting the path. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you like this video, keep an eye out as I have multiple playlists that we'll be adding new content to regularly. The dialogue between you and your legal advisor forms the backbone of this process, ensuring every document and detail is in place. Meanwhile, coordinating home inspections becomes a pivotal moment, ensuring transparency and trust. Responding to buyer inquiries with your realtor by your side becomes an exercise in clarity and communication, setting the stage for the final acts. As you work in tandem with your realtor and lawyer to finalize the sale details, a sense of nearing completion begins to build. Preparing for moving out marks the beginning of your transition, a physical and symbolic step towards your next chapter. Finally, the closing appointment stands as the crescendo of this meticulous process, where signatures are exchanged, keys are handed over, and the sale proceeds are received, culminating in a well-orchestrated finale that leads us to the threshold of your new beginning.